In the cradle of timeless skies, where the heavens shimmer with the radiance of countless gods and the earth blooms under their eternal gaze, there exists a whisper that moves between worlds. A whisper that is not command, not thunder, not storm, but the softer, more dangerous breath of longing. Before creation was fully set in motion, before destiny was written with ink of gold, desire stirred first. Desire was the secret seed, the pulse hidden beneath the cosmic order, and from it came stories of union, of passion, of rebellion, of surrender. It is in this sacred space that the myth of Kama and Rati unfolds, a tale not of war or conquest, but of the subtle fire that warms and consumes, the gentle thread that binds and breaks. Imagine a garden beyond human reach, lush with blossoms that never wilt, where jasmine spills its fragrance across endless air, and rivers flow like molten silver beneath an eternal dawn. Here, every breeze carries sighs of unseen lovers. Every petal seems to lean toward another in aching anticipation. It is in this fertile, perfumed world that Kama, god of desire, is born not as a warrior, nor as a king, but as something far more formidable, a force invisible, untouchable, yet irresistible. He does not command armies, yet he makes the mightiest fall to their knees. He does not bear weapons that pierce flesh, yet a glance, a whisper, a fleeting spark from his unseen bow unravels fortresses built within the heart. He is longing given form, the delicate torment of hunger that can never be fully satisfied. Kama is no tyrant. He is playfulness wrapped in temptation, laughter carried in spring winds, warmth that melts the frost of even the sternest souls. Yet beneath his charm there lies a truth more dangerous. Desire does not bow to reason, nor does it honor the strict lines of divine order. It slips through barriers, kindles fires where none should burn, and awakens dreams where silence was meant to reign. Kama is not merely a god to be adored. He is a force to be feared, for in his arrows lie the power to shake the balance of heaven itself.
But Kama does not stand alone in his dance of desire. There is Rati, whose name itself sings of passion, whose presence embodies the very essence of beauty. If Kama is the spark, Rati is the flame. If he is the longing, she is the fulfillment. She is the warmth of touch that lingers even after the hand is withdrawn, the softness of moonlight caressing a restless body, the fragrance that clings to memory long after the moment has passed. In her lies not only sensual allure, but also devotion, unyielding, fierce, and tender. Where Kama brings desire, Rati gives it depth, grounding the fleeting fire in the soil of loyalty and love. Their myth is not framed in temples of stone or carved into pillars of law. It is carried in glances between lovers, in the trembling hands of those who dare to reach for more than what is safe, in the sleepless nights of longing that twist both mortals and gods alike. Kama and Rati are not distant figures meant to be worshipped from afar. They are the mirror of our own hidden desires, the embodiment of that restless ache which once felt can never be forgotten. To understand their story, one must first surrender to the truth that love is not simple. It is not gentle by nature, though it may arrive as softly as rain. It is a storm disguised as a sigh, a fire disguised as warmth, a blade disguised as silk. Love is the root of creation, yet within it lies the seed of destruction. The heavens themselves tremble at this paradox, for the same force that unites can undo, the same passion that breathes life can consume it. Kama and Rati embody this paradox perfectly. Together they are tenderness and flame, joy and ruin, beauty and danger. When the gods of the heavens speak of order, they speak of restraint, of boundaries, of laws that hold the universe in balance. Yet, when the name of Kama is whispered, order quivers, for desire has no boundaries. It is the one force that does not ask permission. It rises unbidden in the hearts of mortals. It slips past the armor of ascetics. It bends kings and even gods to its will. Kama is not cruel, yet his gift is double-edged. To feel desire is to feel alive, and yet to feel desire is also to be vulnerable, exposed, undone. Rati, in her luminous presence, reminds us that this vulnerability is not weakness, but the truest form of surrender, the moment when the soul yields and finds itself transformed. Their story begins not in thunder, not in conquest, but in a gaze. The way light touches water, the way blossoms lean toward the sun, the way silence can stretch so long that it becomes music. This is how their myth breathes to life. Kama, with his bow of sugar cane strung with buzzing bees, takes aim not at the flesh, but at the soul. And Rati, radiant and tender, stands beside him as both witness and flame. Together, they embody the power of longing that dares to challenge even the gods. Yet, what is most intoxicating about their myth is not the grand sweep of cosmic consequence, but the intimacy. It is in the hush of gardens at dusk, where shadows grow heavy with perfume. It is in the unspoken tremble of anticipation before lips meet. It is in the ache of distance, when desire sharpens into pain, and in the bliss of union, when pain dissolves into ecstasy. Their tale teaches us that passion is not an indulgence. It is a destiny written deeper than law, stronger than decree. The myth of Kama and Rati does not unfold as a distant legend. It breathes, it pulses, it lingers. It asks of us, what is love if not the sweetest rebellion against order? What is desire if not the most intoxicating form of creation? And what is passion if not the most beautiful form of surrender? Their tale begins here,
beneath eternal blossoms, with a bow strung not with arrows of steel, but with the invisible shafts of longing. Here, where silence becomes heavy with anticipation, where each heartbeat is an invocation, Kama's gaze turns toward Roti, and the universe itself leans in to listen. For in their union lies not only the ecstasy of love, but the dangerous truth that even gods cannot escape. That desire, once born, shapes destinies more powerfully than decree, more permanently than law, and more tenderly than eternity itself. Kama, the god of desire, stands apart from the pantheon of divine forces. For his realm is neither thunder nor war, neither oceans nor death, but something far subtler and far more treacherous. He is the hidden tremor in the chest, the flush of the cheek, the silence before a kiss, the wild storm that no fortress can withstand because it does not strike from without but from within. He is not adorned with armor or armed with blades, but with symbols deceptively gentle. His bow is made not of iron, but of sugarcane, fragrant and pliant, a reminder that his power is not rooted in violence, but in sweetness. The bowstring hums with life, spun from the restless buzzing of bees that forever seek nectar, their sound an eternal murmur of hunger. The arrows he releases are tipped not with steel, but with blossoms, jasmine, mango, asoka flowers, petals chosen not for their sharpness, but for their fragrance, that delicate suggestion of tenderness. Yet the wounds they inflict are deeper than any blade, for they do not pierce flesh, but the unseen heart. Once struck by these arrows, gods and mortals alike tremble with longing that cannot be stilled, with desires that even vows and laws cannot silence. No fortress of will can stand before his touch. Ascetics who fast for decades, kings wrapped in power, sages armored in discipline, all falter when his blossoms take flight. Kama is not only a force, but a paradox. He is laughter carried on spring winds, playful and careless, yet within that play lies the power to unmake worlds. He is tenderness incarnate, the warmth of sunlight that coaxes blossoms to life. Yet the same warmth becomes fire that consumes when it grows too strong. His presence is irresistible, not because it demands, but because it seduces, not because it forces, but because it whispers. He is the one who proves that even eternity itself cannot remain untouched by desire, that even gods who govern order and time are vulnerable to the invisible flame. Yet Kama is not complete without Rati. If he is the arrow, she is the embrace that follows its strike. If he is the spark, she is the fire that rises, warm and consuming, steady and eternal. Rati is the goddess of passion, and her very being embodies the sensual and the tender. She moves with the grace of rivers gliding through moonlight, her steps as soft as silk unraveling, her voice carrying the low musical hum of distant waters. She is not merely beauty, she is beauty given death, beauty transformed into feeling, beauty that lingers even when unseen.
Her form is radiant, yet what makes her divine is not her appearance but her essence. She is passion's breath, the vulnerability that accompanies love, the tenderness that turns desire into devotion. Where Kama awakens hunger, Rati gives it meaning. Without her, his arrows would burn like wildfires, leaving only ash. With her, they become hearth flames, offering warmth, intimacy, and connection. She grounds him, tempers him, and in her devotion transforms his fleeting force into something eternal. Yet beneath her grace lies fragility, for passion is never safe. To embody desire is to open oneself to pain as well as joy. Rati knows this truth better than any. She understands that to love Kama is to walk beside danger, for desire is not bound by law, and those who wield it inevitably draw the ire of gods who prize restraint. Her strength is not found in resistance, but in surrender. Fierce, conscious, unwavering surrender. Where others falter before Kama's fire, Rati leans into it, becoming one with its heat, even when it threatens to destroy her. Together, Kama and Rati form a union that is not simply love, but balance. He is restless energy, she is grounding tenderness. He is the provocation, she is the fulfillment. His playful chaos finds shape in her embrace, and her beauty finds spark in his arrows. Without Rati, Kama's mischief might consume itself in its own flame. Without Kama, Rati's devotion might remain unawakened potential. They ignite one another endlessly, completing each other as the sky completes the sea, as flame completes breath. Their bond is not fragile, but it is not without shadow. In their union, there is joy so intense that even the gods envy it, yet also a peril that cannot be ignored. For passion that burns so brightly casts long shadows, and love that dares to defy restraint will not be allowed to flourish without trial. The divine order, stern and unyielding, views their force with unease. Desire threatens discipline, love threatens duty, passion threatens balance, and so, even as Kama and Rati stand as embodiments of longing and fulfillment, they live under the gaze of those who would quench their fire. Theirs is a love destined for testing. Kama's laughter, his playful defiance of rules, will one day bring him into conflict with gods who tolerate no rebellion. Rati's devotion, her willingness to bind herself wholly to him, will become both her greatest strength and her deepest sorrow. Their love is not a tale of quiet harmony, but of ecstasy edged with tragedy, devotion shadowed by sacrifice. Yet it is precisely this complexity that makes their myth irresistible. We do not listen to their story for comfort alone, but for recognition. For in them we see our own truths reflected. We see that desire is never harmless, that love is never without risk, that passion, though sweet, always asks a price. Their union is both a hymn and a warning. To surrender to love is to be transformed, but also to stand vulnerable before fate. In the hushed gardens of heaven, where blossoms never fade and rivers shine like silver threads, their love is sung not in loud proclamations, but in whispers. Whispers of laughter, of sighs, of promises exchanged in the privacy of gazes. Yet even the gods hear, and even they cannot ignore. For when Kama's arrows fly and Rati's fire blooms, the entire cosmos leans closer, trembling with anticipation of what such passion will bring. And so the stage is set. We see Kama, irresistible and dangerous, the playful yet cosmic god whose arrows shake eternity. We see Rati, radiant and tender, the embodiment of grace and vulnerability, whose devotion transforms desire into love. We see them together, igniting one another, perfect halves of a flame that burns brighter than the stars. But already we sense the weight of foreshadowing. Already the air quivers with the promise of trial. For love such as theirs cannot remain unchallenged. Their passion will call forth opposition, their joy will summon envy, and their devotion will be tested in ways that even gods may not endure. Thus, as their story unfolds, the listener is drawn forward, held in the delicate tension between ecstasy and sorrow. We are invited not only to witness their beauty, but to anticipate their struggle. For the tale of Kama and Rati is not simply about the sweetness of desire. It is about the cost of love, the pain hidden within passion, and the eternal truth that even the most divine flames must burn against the winds of fate.
In the beginning, the heavens watched Kama and Rati with curiosity, perhaps even with a certain indulgent amusement, as though their love were no more than a flower blooming in the corner of a vast and endless garden. But flowers never stay confined to their little patch of earth. Their fragrance spreads, invisible yet undeniable, carried on the winds until even those who did not wish to breathe it find themselves intoxicated. So it was with the flame of Kama and Rati. What had begun as a private fire between two divine beings soon spread its glow into the farthest corners of the cosmos, stirring even the most disciplined of hearts, unsettling even the sternest of minds. The first tremors of conflict arose softly, as whispers among ascetics who had sworn their lives to silence and stillness. Kama's arrows, tipped with the sweetness of longing, found them even in their caves of meditation, pricking their hearts with memories of warmth they thought long abandoned. Among the sages who sought only clarity, the fragrance of Rati's presence stole into their meditations like jasmine drifting through an open window. Visions of beauty, of softness, of tender touch pressed themselves into minds that had been devoted to austerity. Even the gods who prided themselves on restraint began to feel the pull, a reminder that no being, however mighty, was beyond the reach of longing. And so unease crept into the heavens. Desire had become too bold. The flame that warmed could also consume, and some feared that Kama and Rati's uncontainable passion would one day turn into firestorms that no divine hand could control. It was here that the true barrier arose, for though many gods delighted in the dance of longing, there were others who regarded it with suspicion.
To them, desire was not a blessing but a force of disorder, something that threatened the careful balance of creation. Among them stood Shiva, the great ascetic, the one who sat in eternal meditation. His stillness was deeper than the ocean, his discipline more unyielding than mountains, his silence heavier than the night sky. To Shiva, desire was an intrusion, a ripple upon the calm waters of infinity. His vow was to transcend it, to exist untouched by yearning so that his power might remain pure, untainted, and beyond corruption.
And yet, here lay a paradox so cruel that it bordered on divine irony. Desire was needed. For the wheel of creation, ever turning, required Shiva's awakening from meditation. Without his union, without his gaze breaking from the eternal inward, the cycle of renewal could not continue. Life waited for him, but he would not move. The world longed for his embrace, but he kept his heart sealed in silence. The gods, watching, grew restless. Thus they turned to Kama. Who else could stir the one who had sworn never to be stirred? Who else could pierce the fortress of silence and awaken longing where none was meant to live? It was a mission heavy with contradiction, to awaken Shiva with desire, even though Shiva himself had vowed to destroy whatever dared to disturb his meditation. When the gods placed this impossible task before him, Kama laughed. It was not arrogance, though his laughter had a playful sharpness. It was recognition. What greater destiny could there be for the embodiment of desire than to test himself against the immovable? How could he, whose essence was to awaken yearning, refuse to take aim at the one heart that had closed itself entirely? His bow was no weapon of steel or iron, but of sugar cane, soft and sweet, strung with the hum of buzzing bees. His arrows were tipped not with metal, but with fragrant blossoms, mango, ashoka, jasmine, each carrying a poison far more potent than any crafted in war. And yet, beneath his laughter there was defiance. For to challenge Shiva was to challenge not just a god, but the very foundation of restraint itself. Desire stood ready to strike at eternity, and Kama, in his recklessness, was eager to see if even eternity could be broken. Rati, faithful and luminous, stood beside him. Her devotion did not waver, though her heart trembled with dread. She knew the danger. She understood the risk better than anyone, for she was the living embodiment of passion, and passion knows too well how quickly fire can consume. Yet her love was fierce, and love does not always seek to restrain. Sometimes it urges forward, whispering, "Go, risk. Even if you burn, I will burn with you." Her eyes lingered on Kama's face, tracing the curve of his lips, the brightness of his gaze, as though memorizing him before fate could tear him away. Her fingers brushed his hand, a touch both grounding and trembling, filled with fear yet also with a faith that if destruction came, they would meet it together. She whispered no protests. She begged no retreat. For what is love, if not the willingness to stand beside one's beloved even when the world itself is set against them?
Thus the tension grew unbearable. A string pulled taut, not only on Kama's bow, but on the very fabric of existence. His was the reckless boldness of passion, the daring to pierce silence itself. Hers was the unwavering devotion that steadied him, that gave his audacity the warmth of purpose. It was not a conflict of armies or thrones, but of hearts and laws, of passion against restraint, of love against cosmic order. And yet it was more than their story. It was the story of every heart, repeated in countless forms across time and space. Who among mortals has not felt this struggle, the yearning to reach, to touch, to break past limits, even when reason warns against it? Who has not stood on the edge of restraint, trembling with the desire to leap, no matter the fall? Kama and Rati's conflict was intimate, but it was also universal. It belonged to gods and to mortals alike. When Kama raised his bow toward Shiva, the cosmos itself seemed to pause. Winds stilled, rivers hushed their flow, blossoms leaned on their stems as though to watch. Even the stars dimmed their light, bending toward the moment. It was not a weapon of war he held, but something infinitely more dangerous, a weapon that could unravel the fortress of discipline, that could shake the silence of eternity. One arrow, loosed in playfulness, could alter the destiny of creation. To pierce the heart of Shiva was not merely to awaken love, it was to challenge the very order of the cosmos, to declare that no vow of restraint could ever deny the call of longing. It was a gamble that carried within it the promise of renewal, but also the certainty of wrath. And still Kama smiled. Still Rati stood beside him, her breath caught, her heart pounding, her devotion holding her steady. For what is love, if not the courage to risk everything, even annihilation, for the chance to awaken joy? Thus the conflict of their tale burned brightly, as intimate as the brush of lips, and as vast as the trembling of stars. It was the eternal struggle, desire daring to strike at silence, love daring to face wrath, longing daring to test eternity itself. And even now, as the bowstring trembled, the question hung in the still air like an unloosed arrow. Would longing triumph, or would restraint crush it?
The air trembled as Kama's arrow arced through the heavens, tipped with fragrant blossoms and the subtle hum of bees. Time itself seemed to hesitate, holding its breath in anticipation. Even the distant stars, usually indifferent to mortal or divine affairs, flickered uncertainly, as if aware that something monumental was about to unfold. Shiva, the ascetic lord, unmoving in meditation, felt a sudden stir in the depths of his consciousness, an invisible touch that pricked at the walls of his discipline. It was subtle at first, a whisper of longing, a sigh brushing against the corners of his mind. Yet beneath it lay a power so insistent that it could not be ignored. The arrow had struck. Kama's pulse raced, not from fear, but from the ecstasy of creation itself. He had unleashed not destruction nor conquest, but something infinitely more dangerous, desire in its purest, most unyielding form. Beside him, Rati's presence glowed like molten gold, a warmth that radiated from her very being. She leaned into him, not to shield or restrain, but to amplify, to become one with the force he had released. Her eyes, wide with awe and devotion, mirrored the infinite fire of his spirit, and in that reflection, Kama saw not only himself, but the culmination of their love, a power that could awaken, transform, and consume in equal measure. Their union, though not yet physical, already carried the weight of inevitability. The cosmos seemed to pulse around them, responding to the collision of passion and longing. The flowers in the eternal gardens leaned as if to witness the moment, their petals trembling in silent reverence. Even the winds softened their rush, curling around the lovers like a delicate caress, carrying the scent of blossoms and the subtle warmth of anticipation. Every detail of creation seemed attuned to the unfolding climax, as if the universe itself were holding space for this sacred act. Rati stepped closer, her fingers brushing Kama's, and the simple touch sent a tremor through both of them. Their souls recognized one another, not as separate entities, but as halves of a flame that had long yearned to converge. Desire, which had been playful, tentative, and testing, now solidified into something fierce and undeniable. It was no longer merely longing. It was surrender, communion, the merging of selves into a force that transcended mortal and divine law alike. In that shared breath, they understood that love is not measured in moments, but in the intensity of union, in the depth of vulnerability embraced without hesitation.
The sensuality of their connection unfolded in layers, both seen and unseen. Their eyes met, and a universe of unspoken promises passed between them. The brush of lips, the lingering press of hands, the tilt of a head leaning toward warmth, each gesture amplified the other, each sensation magnified by the sheer intensity of their desire. Yet it was not merely physical, it was emotional, spiritual, cosmic. The boundaries between body and soul, between self and other dissolved, leaving only the pure essence of love in its most elevated form. Kama, emboldened by the presence of Rati, allowed himself to fully feel the gravity of their moment. His bow, the instrument of his playful chaos, now rested lightly in his hands, its purpose fulfilled. The arrow, having awakened the heart of Shiva, had completed its mission. Yet Kama felt that true fulfillment lay not in the act alone, but in the shared acknowledgement of intimacy with Rati. She was his counterpart, his mirror, the force that transformed his spark into uncontainable flame. Together they had set in motion something beyond their own understanding, a passion that would ripple through the cosmos, touching all who had ever known desire. Rati, radiant and unwavering, became the anchor and amplifier of their union. She leaned into Kama's energy, allowing her essence to blend with his, her warmth becoming the vessel through which desire flowed. Her devotion was not passive, it was active, intentional, transformative. She met his fire with her own, a counterforce that neither diminished nor overwhelmed, but elevated. In her presence, Kama's passion did not falter, it soared, taking them both to a height that seemed to suspend time itself. As they drew closer, the intimacy deepened, and the emotional intensity became almost unbearable. Every glance was a caress, every breath a whisper, every heartbeat a drum in the symphony of their union. They existed in a space beyond law, beyond fear, beyond consequence, a space where the soul could speak directly to the soul, where love was both sanctuary and revelation. In this suspended moment, the ordinary rules of existence seemed trivial, and the only reality was the force that bound them, the unyielding, uncontainable, and transformative power of desire made flesh and spirit. Yet even within this overwhelming union, there was tension, a shadow woven into the light. For their love, as ecstatic as it was, carried risk. The gods watched, and the balance of the cosmos hung in delicate suspension. To yield completely to passion was to flirt with chaos, yet to restrain it would be to deny the essence of their beings. Kama and Rati moved in perfect harmony, aware of the danger, yet unafraid, knowing that the ultimate expression of love often demands surrender that is both exhilarating and terrifying. It was a dance on the edge of eternity, a flirtation with power, a merging that tested the limits of their courage and their devotion.
The climax unfolded not as a single act, but as a crescendo of sensation and emotion. Their hearts raced in sync, their breaths mingled, and a silent music seemed to rise from the very air around them. The cosmos itself responded, the heavens bending closer, the stars shimmering as if applauding, the flowers leaning, rivers pausing in their flow. Every element of the universe seemed to acknowledge the inevitability of this union, as though creation itself had been waiting for this moment to fully realize its own longing. And yet, even as their connection deepened, they remained aware of the fragility of the moment. Desire, by its nature, is fleeting if not embraced fully, and love, by its nature, can be interrupted. They pressed closer, seeking not only the pleasure of bodies entwined, but the fusion of souls, a union that defied time, space, and law. In that sacred merging, they became more than themselves. They became a single force of passion and devotion, a living testament to the power of love to transcend boundaries, to awaken the dormant, to ignite what was once cold and unfeeling. It was here, in the pinnacle of emotional and sensual intensity, that the full truth of their relationship was revealed. That love is both surrender and empowerment, that desire is both play and peril, that union is both creation and transformation. Kama and Rati had moved beyond the ordinary expressions of passion. They had entered a realm where every glance, every touch, every whispered breath was an act of creation, a defiance of restraint, a celebration of the profound and the eternal. Even as the climax reached its peak, the aftermath shimmered with resonance. Their souls had intertwined in a way that neither law nor duty could unbind. The union was overwhelming, yet transformative, leaving both reborn, their essence fused, their energies ignited in a way that would ripple through the heavens and the earth. The sensual had become sacred, the intimate universal, and the private act of love had become a cosmic declaration that desire, when embraced fully, can transcend the very laws of existence, and that true union is both a gift and a revolution. In the stillness that followed, as they lingered in each other's embrace, there was a profound understanding between them. They had dared to love without restraint, to surrender without fear, to merge without hesitation. The universe, which had watched with bated breath, seemed to exhale, a gentle acknowledgement of the inevitability and the inevitability of what had transpired. For in that sacred climax, Kama and Rati had not merely enacted desire, they had embodied its highest form, a fusion of hearts, bodies, and souls, a union that would echo eternally in the hearts of gods and mortals alike.
The aftershocks of Kama and Rati's union rippled across the cosmos, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. Where once the heavens had been a stage of measured order, now every element seemed touched by the tremor of their passion. Rivers murmured differently, carrying scents they had never known. Flowers, even in hidden gardens, bent as if bowing to the memory of their union. The winds themselves whispered in hushed tones, carrying murmurs of longing beyond origin. Their love, as intoxicating as it had been, had set in motion consequences that could not be undone, a force that neither playful desire nor tender devotion could fully contain. The first tremor of the turning point came with Shiva's awakening. From the depths of his meditation, the ascetic opened his eyes, and the world felt the weight of his gaze. The arrow had done its work, desire had awakened him, but it also carried danger. Kama, who had sought to ignite passion, now faced the reality that even gods are not immune to the consequences of longing. The subtle fire he had released had grown beyond his control, and Shiva's presence, measured yet absolute, was a force neither Kama nor Rati could fully anticipate. Kama, playful, yet now fully aware of the gravity of his act, felt the tremors of consequence. Desire, once purely a force of creation, now carried the weight of risk. In the still air of the heavens, he saw the consequences of passion unfold. A single moment of indulgence, a fleeting instant of rapture, could threaten the very order he had long taken for granted. What had been playful now demanded accountability, a reckoning that challenged the freedom he had always known. Rati, luminous and unwavering, sensed the shift immediately. Her devotion, once purely strength, became also her burden. She had walked willingly into the fire of Kama's daring, and now she stood in its aftermath, feeling both triumph and peril. Her heart ached with the awareness that love, however divine, cannot escape judgment. That desire, however sacred, can summon forces capable of severing even the strongest bonds. Yet she did not waver. Her soul remained tethered to Kama's, luminous and steadfast, an affirmation of their bond that no force could undo.
Then came the moment defining their story, the recognition that passion, however pure, carries consequences beyond comprehension. Kama, whose essence was longing, now confronted the harshness of divine law. Shiva's eyes, deep and unyielding, met his, carrying both recognition and reprimand. The flame that had been kindled in the ascetic's heart was proof that desire cannot exist without cost, that passion, when unleashed upon eternity, can bring both creation and loss. The first stroke of consequence touched Kama directly. In the unfolding balance of cosmic order, he felt a force neither Rati's warmth nor his own audacity could temper. The arrow that had sparked ecstasy now carried judgment. A momentary flash, imperceptible to most, pierced him, not in body, but in essence. His spirit shimmered and shifted, a reminder that even divine passion is fragile when confronted with immutable law. Rati's grief, tempered by devotion, was immediate. The loss was partial. Kama's essence remained, aware and alive, but transformed. Where once he had moved freely, guided by irrepressible desire, now there was caution, a recognition that the freedom of passion must coexist with the boundaries of existence. Rati felt the subtle shift, as if a part of her own soul had been touched. The fire they shared remained, but tempered by consequence. Her love, fierce and enduring, became the anchor that would guide Kama through this new reality. Yet within this outcome there was more than grief. There was rebirth. Desire, though tested, had not been extinguished. Passion, though moderated, had not been defeated. From the crucible of consequence emerged a love transformed, deepened, and more profound. The intimacy of their climactic union became a wellspring of strength, sustaining them in trials to come. Rati's devotion radiated more luminous than ever, affirmed not only by the heights of ecstasy, but also by the humility born of consequence.
The heavens themselves seemed to acknowledge this delicate resolution. Winds carried the subtle scent of permanence. Rivers flowed with softer, deliberate currents, reflecting the tempered fire of desire. Flowers swayed in serene acknowledgement. Even stars shimmered with a new constancy. Their love, once reckless, had become a force that harmonized ecstasy and restraint. It was a quiet symphony of balance, a testament to the truth that passion, when tempered, can endure and even strengthen. Still, sorrow lingered. Loss threaded the edges. In the absence of pure, unrestrained playfulness in Kama, in the shadow of vigilance now accompanying Rati's devotion, in the awareness that even divine desire must respect existence's bounds, ecstasy and sorrow coexisted, each defining the other. The poignancy of their love was sharpened by the knowledge that every moment of union carries both joy and consequence. The bitter sweetness of what had passed infused every glance, every touch, every shared breath with the depth that had not existed before. Through this delicate equilibrium, Kama and Rati discovered profound truth. Desire, in its purest form, is not indulgence. It is a force that elevates even as it tests. Love, confronted with consequence, becomes fragile yet resilient, intimate yet cosmic. Their story, once a reflection of longing and beauty, now embodied the full spectrum of emotional experience: joy, risk, devotion, grief, and renewal. It was a mirror of existence itself, a reminder that nothing beautiful comes without trial, and that love, though sacred, carries responsibility. The transformation was subtle, yet absolute. Kama's essence, once untamed and reckless, now bore marks of consequence, a tempered fire that could still ignite, but knew its limits. Rati's devotion, tested and affirmed, radiated with depth transcending mere desire. It became the anchor of their shared existence, guiding them through challenges ahead. Together, they moved beyond playful intoxication into the profound territory of enduring love, a bond forged in passion and refined by trial.
Even in the quiet aftermath, they lingered together, aware of both triumph and cost. Kama, tempered yet undiminished, met Rati's gaze and recognized the depth of her love, the unwavering strength that had guided him even as the universe tested their flame. Rati leaned into him, her presence comforting and affirming, a reminder that desire and devotion are intertwined, each giving meaning to the other. Thus, the cosmos itself seemed to settle, acknowledging both the passion unleashed and the restraint now tempered. Gardens, rivers, winds, and stars bore witness to their duality, ecstatic yet disciplined, joyful yet sorrowful, fleeting yet eternal. Kama and Rati, entwined in spirit if not always in form, became a living testament that even divine passion carries consequence, and that the truest bonds endure both longing and trial. In this outcome, the myth of Kama and Rati reached its full resonance. Passion had been tested, love affirmed, and the universe shifted subtly, irrevocably under their influence. Desire is both gift and responsibility, devotion both solace and strength, and ecstasy inseparable from awareness of cost. Their story is a journey from reckless passion to conscious union, from playful longing to enduring connection, echoing eternally as a reminder that love, even divine, carries both sweetness and shadow, joy and the weight of consequence. Even as they walked through the eternal gardens, side by side, their hearts intertwined, the memory of what they had endured lingered like a soft fragrance. Every step, every breath, every glance was infused with reverence for both the flame that had ignited them and the restraint that had preserved them. Their love had survived trial, and in that survival lay its deepest beauty. Desire, tempered by consequence, became devotion. Longing, confronted by loss, became endurance. Passion, tested by cosmic law, became eternal.
Desire is the thread upon which the tapestry of existence is woven, a force both subtle and overwhelming, intimate and infinite. It is the pulse beneath the rhythms of the cosmos, the quiet hum that guides the stars and bends the rivers, the invisible wind that stirs the petals of flowers in distant gardens. Kama and Rati, in their daring, in their devotion, in the ecstatic collision of their hearts, have revealed the nature of desire in its purest, most potent form. A power that awakens, a fire that transforms, a force that defies restraint while remaining bound to consequence. Their story is not merely a tale of two divine lovers. It is an illumination of a universal truth whispered across time and space. Longing is eternal, and love, in its many forms, is inexhaustible. In the sacred union of Kama and Rati, we witness desire as creation itself. Every arrow loosed, every glance shared, every breath mingled is an act of cosmic artistry, shaping worlds even as it ignites hearts. The gardens where they walked, the rivers that carried their reflection, the winds that bore the scent of blossoms, all became witnesses and participants in the unfolding of passion. To love as they did is to leave an imprint upon reality. It is to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, to awaken hidden possibilities and to ignite sparks in places that once knew only stillness. Desire is not passive. It is a call to action, a summons to awaken the dormant fire within oneself and within others. Yet desire is not without peril. Its brilliance, like the sun, can both illuminate and scorch. Kama's arrow, playful yet potent, stirred the heart of Shiva, awakening longing where there had been only meditation and silence. In that act lay both creation and risk, the possibility of awakening joy, but also the inevitability of consequence. To love truly and without restraint is to risk everything. Loss may follow, separation may arrive, and yet, within that risk, there is beauty unparalleled. Passion teaches humility as much as ecstasy. It tempers audacity with awareness, melding the intensity of the heart with the wisdom of consequence. The lover's story reminds us that desire, while intoxicating, is never without its shadow, and that within the interplay of light and darkness lies the fullness of experience. As we broaden our gaze beyond the lovers themselves, we perceive the echo of their influence throughout the cosmos. Desire courses through every being, every heart, every living pulse. It is present in the first breath of a newborn, in the longing gaze of a poet, in the quiet ache of someone who waits for love that seems beyond reach. It shapes choices, forges destinies, and leaves traces that linger long after moments of intimacy have passed. Kama and Rati's story magnifies this truth. To love is to participate in the fundamental currents of the universe, to acknowledge that every flicker of longing carries within it the power to create and to transform. Yet there is a haunting beauty in the impermanence of desire. Every arrow loosed, every moment of union, every glance exchanged carries the awareness that nothing is entirely within our control. Passion, for all its brilliance, can fade or shift. Longing, for all its intensity, may meet obstacles or consequence. And yet, It is precisely this uncertainty that renders desire sacred, that makes every heartbeat, every touch, every sigh laden with significance. To recognize the ephemeral nature of longing is to cherish it more fully, to inhabit it with conscious awareness, and to honor the force that drives hearts to risk, to reach, and to unite. In the luminous aftermath of their journey, Kama and Rati remind us that love and longing are eternal, not bound by time, space, or even divine decree. Their story lingers in the wind that stirs petals, in the fragrance of unseen glooms, in the quiet spaces where hearts remember what it means to ache and to be fulfilled. Even in separation, even in consequence, the energy they unleashed continues to resonate, shaping the rhythms of existence, touching every soul that dares to feel. Love is not contained. It flows, it spreads, it transforms. Longing is not fleeting. It is inscribed into the fabric of being itself, an echo that endures across lifetimes and realms.
Rati's devotion exemplifies the endurance that desire demands. Her love, unwavering in the face of peril, luminous even as it confronted grief, became the anchor of their union. To witness such devotion is to recognize that desire is not merely the thrill of fleeting intimacy, but the willingness to embrace vulnerability, to remain steadfast when the world tests the strength of connection. Passion without commitment may flare and fade, leaving only ashes. But when joined with devotion, it becomes a current that sustains and reshapes, a force that can carry souls across the vast expanse of time and trial. Rati teaches us that longing, when embraced fully, does not only ignite, it preserves, nurtures, and transforms. The consequence of their union reveals another truth, that love is never isolated from the world it inhabits. Kama's essence, once untamed and playful, met the immutable weight of cosmic law. Desire must navigate the terrain of reality, acknowledging boundaries while remaining vibrant, embracing freedom while respecting order. Even the gods, immortal and omnipotent, are touched by this principle. In the aftermath of their climax, we see that longing and passion do not exist solely for pleasure. They shape destinies, influence the balance of existence, and demand recognition of their power. Their story is a meditation on the delicate equilibrium between the intensity of feeling and the responsibility it entails, reminding us that every act of love resonates beyond the moment. From the union of passion and consequence emerges transformation. Kama and Rati, tempered yet undiminished, discovered that ecstasy and restraint, joy and sorrow, are not opposites, but companions, each giving depth and dimension to the other. Their bond, forged in the fire of desire and tempered in the crucible of consequence, became an enduring force, a reminder that love is both fragile and resilient. Desire, when fully embraced, can elevate, illuminate, and empower, but it also requires courage, wisdom, and the capacity to endure. The lover's journey teaches that longing is a teacher, that passion is a guide, and that the heart, when opened fully, becomes a vessel for both creation and transformation.
We are left with the haunting impression that desire is both tender and formidable, that it can elevate as easily as it can humble, that its beauty is inseparable from its intensity. Kama and Rati's myth closes not with resolution alone, but with a lingering resonance that touches the listener's own heart. It whispers that every act of love, every daring embrace, every moment of surrender contributes to a greater symphony, a cosmic rhythm that moves silently yet insistently across the universe. Their story is a mirror of our own potential for passion, for devotion, for transformation, and for grace. Finally, the myth leaves us suspended in a moment both intimate and infinite. We feel the warmth of longing, the depth of devotion, the trembling beauty of risk and consequence. We understand, as the lovers themselves have come to know, that desire is not merely a fleeting impulse. It is a force that shapes worlds, that binds hearts, that endures beyond comprehension. And as the echo of their passion settles into the fabric of existence, the listener is left with a profound, lingering sense of awe, that love in its many forms is eternal, that longing in its infinite variations is inexhaustible, and that the heart, when fully opened, participates in a divine and timeless symphony of connection and transformation. Kama and Rati, in their courage, in their devotion, and in the audacity of their passion, have shown that to love is to touch eternity, and that the power of desire is inseparable from the beauty and complexity of life itself. Their myth lingers, a haunting, unforgettable force, a reminder that longing is eternal, that love is immortal, and that the dance of hearts, whether divine or mortal, continues across all realms, shaping destinies and leaving a trail of luminous, indelible beauty.